Hello and welcome to the Avrum Rosensweig Show.
Welcome to one of the internet's best podcasts, where we dive deep into the lives of the extraordinary and fascinating people who leave an indelible mark on our world. Join us as we explore their captivating stories, remarkable achievements, and unique perspectives that shape history and inspire generations. Get ready to embark on a journey through the lives of inspiring people unlike any other.
Hello, folks, and welcome to the Avrum Rosensweig Show. My name is Avrum Rosensweig, and I am here with my co-host, Rabbi Shlomo Gemara. How are you, Rabbi?
Very well. How are you, Avrum?
I'm great. The show is brought to you by the Professional Center. Whether you need a private office away from distractions or a quiet place to meet a client, TPC has it all. They are Toronto's top co-working space at 120 Adelaide, where exceeding expectations is their standard. At TPC, they blend elegance with functionality, providing private offices, fully equipped meeting rooms, and superior service with exceptional views. Choose TPC for more style, more space, and more opportunities to succeed. For more information, visit theprofessionalcenter.com. And if you mention my name, Avrum Rose, or just Avrum, AVRUM, you'll get 10% off private offices and meeting rooms. Thank you to that company for sponsoring us. Now, the Rabbi and I, we felt that it was really important to bring together this show. It's a bit unusual because normally we do our Parsha and Prose show every Tuesday or thereabouts. But we did this for a reason. We're sort of calling it our emergency show, a way of responding to anti-Semitism that is happening in the world in a different sort of way. And that way is through using the Talmud and quotes within the Talmud to state that the Jewish people are hateful of the non-Jew, of the Gentile, of the goyim. Rabbi, I sent over an article to you that is found in the Jewish Chronicle. It's a London-based newspaper, probably one of the oldest Jewish newspapers, and it's called Online Anti-Semites, The New Frontier, the Talmud. It is all about a fellow by the name of Dan Bilzerian, who's an American poker player, a playboy of sorts, who posted quotes from the Talmud on his social media, basically stating lines, what he said were lines, quotes from the Talmud that were very, very anti-Gentile. And obviously the reason for him doing that, is to show how hateful the Jewish people are of the non-Jews. Now, we're going to get into these quotes today and sort of unpack a couple of them, but mostly what we want to talk about is the Talmud, what the Talmud is to the Jewish people and to the world, and really the universal components of the Talmud, or the Gemara as it's called, that we all have to be very, very aware of, and do not allow these anti-Semitic tropes and ideas to seep into any culture whatsoever. Rabbi, do you want to add to that?
Absolutely. The problem with those sites, the one that you mentioned, this arrived to millions of people over the world who know nothing about the Talmud. This might hit even Jewish students who never opened the Talmud, and they read unbelievable quotes from the Talmud, and they say, I cannot belong to something so primitive and so anti-Goyish or anti-non-Jews. So especially in our days, when we have the influence of the social media on millions of people, I think we have to have maybe a unit that will explain right away to the people who don't know much what is really going on. And therefore, when you raised this idea, I said, Avrum, we must do something about it. This is not the first time that it happened. We join maybe a tradition of hundreds of years. This kind of quotes from the Talmud are not new at all, and it's a great honor and a privilege for me to try to protect the Talmud in a way. The Talmud does not need my protection, but I would say many people who know nothing, they need my advice and your advice how to read the Talmud. So they are not going to be influenced by this kind of nonsense and lies that are spreading all over. And Goebbels already said, you repeat a lie 1,000 times and people start thinking it's true. So we have, right when this kind of things is flooding the internet, we have to be there and to tell people, wait a second, what you read, what you hear is simply not true.
Rabbi Adin Steinsaltz, who passed away only a few short years ago, and one of the foremost scholars when it comes to the Talmud. He, in fact, translated it into English, a very prolific English, which is available at every major Jewish bookstore. I use it myself when I study the Talmud on a daily basis. He wrote in his book, The Essential Talmud, for many years, the Talmud has been terribly maligned by those who do not know it. If needed, some kind of explanation, introduction from several perspectives of its basic parameters is required, which is what you're saying. Now, that is what indeed we're doing today. We're giving perspective on the Talmud, what it is and what it means to the Jewish people, and I said what it means to the world. So let me start off by just reading a little bit of this article from the Jewish Chronicle, which essentially is the reason why we're doing this today. Dan Bilzerian, an American poker player turned influencer, shared his take on the rabbinic text in a post on X this weekend. It has received almost 6 million views. Quote, the Talmud is, after the Hebrew Bible, the central text of rabbinic Judaism and the primary source of Jewish religious law, halakha, and Jewish theology. He copied this from Wikipedia. Underneath his brief explanation, Bilzerian posted 12 quotes allegedly taken from the Talmud, one of which is, if a goy hits a Jew, he must be killed. One reads, a Jew may violate but not marry a non-Jewish girl, says another. Needless to say, Bilzerian's quotes are either mistranslated, decontextualized, or entirely made up. Rabbis, including Yisrael Eliashav and Daniel Rowe, have taken to social media to combat the misinformation, painstakingly analyzing each reference in keeping, ironically, with the traditions of Jewish scholarship that the Talmud exemplifies. So here we are today doing the same. Let me post the quotes that Bilzerian has used. And Rabbi, I want to turn this over to you and ask you, first off, explain to our viewers what the Talmud is.
Okay, this is highly important because I want to start from a point that precedes what Rabbi Steinsaltz writes. I want to take our listeners, let's say 1800 years ago, and we are going into a room with students who learn Torah. You see behind me many books. These books were not available for them. We have to understand that the way the Torah was given from God to Moses, there was a written text, but there were many explanations and methods how to decipher the text in a way that will make meaning to our life. Because you can say, lo tirtzach, you shouldn't kill, but what happened if a person actually deserves capital punishment? The Torah says, lo tirtzach, you cannot kill. But therefore, you need explanation. Where are the exceptions to the rule? What situation deserve different attitude, and so on and so on. So in Jewish life, two paths took way. One is the Torah shebichtav, the written Torah, which is exactly the way that it was given to Moses on Sinai. But the other one was Torah shebe'al peh, an oral Torah, all the explanations that are going from a rabbi to a student, from a student to his student, and so on until this very day. Now, here is something that maybe some of our listeners don't know. I can take the prominent rabbis of today and to go about 200 generations before, and we will arrive to Moses himself. There is no areas in Jewish history that we don't know who were the greatest rabbi of the day. So you have a tradition here that is going from our day, and you can track it backwards more than 3,500 years ago. And the rabbis, until about 1900 years ago, this explanation of the Torah, the method of how to derive things from the Torah, gave it orally from one student to another. Because everyone understands that when you come to explanation that touches upon a very sensitive issue sometimes, or ways and method of learning which might be not fully understood when you read it, you need the human touch between a rabbi and his student, a professor and his student, in order to explain it perfectly well. Because when we read, it's the way we perceive it. If you really want to know something, you have to learn it from the mouth of the person who developed a certain theory or certain laws, and so on and so on. What happened about 1800 years ago, this body of knowledge was in danger. The Romans took over the land of Israel. The scholars in Israel did not have the time to learn. Students did not come to the yeshivot because they had to work extremely hard just to put bread on the table, and sometimes even not that. And a person, the greatest Jewish leader of the time, Rabbi Yehuda Hanassi, the president, the political, and the Torah scholar of the day, decided that although the tradition was, until his day, going down orally, we have to write it down. When you write down things, let me tell you, there will be people who read it and not always fully understand the text that it's written. I'm a teacher. I can tell you that it happened every class that I get, like students who sometimes understood what I wrote in a different way. It happened to a huge body of laws, instruction, stories, when it in text and you don't have a tradition from your teachers, some people will make mistakes. However, Rabbi Yehuda Hanassi, this person who was the greatest leader at the time and had, by the way, exceptional relationship with the Roman emperor of the day, he decided that yes, there is a risk here, but in order to avoid forgetting the entire work of knowledge that went down for 2,000 years, we must write it down. And that's exactly what he did. And from his time, the main thing that Jewish scholars did was to understand deeply those texts that usually were written in a very short and brief way. Talmud means learning. So you take a text and you analyze it, you grind it, you really try to understand every word, the connection to the previous word, what does it mean regarding the next word? And that's what they did in the Torah academies, mostly in Babel, but also in Eretz Israel. And that's what we do until this very day. The people who spend their time in yeshivot, they don't waste their time. They are working very, very hard in order to understand every single word and behind. What does it mean? Why we came to this conclusion? And sometimes they disagree with each other, what we call machloket, disagreement, which are vast and many, because it's a text. Because many of our knowledge does not come from a teacher, but our understand of the text. So taking the Talmud, like to take here, a piece here, a piece here, a piece here, like these bloggers are doing, or these Instagram users, whatever it is, that's exactly the most unbelievable thing. They take huge body of knowledge with many interpretations, and they quote, or usually I would say misquote things, and we maybe will deal with some of them, and present themselves to be expert. I'm a rabbi. Since the age of 17, most of my time is devoted to exactly that, to understand the law, every word, the connection, the disagreement between two great scholars who understand the text differently. And I will never present myself as a Talmud scholar that can answer every question. And here comes people. One is like a professional poker player, and that's very nice. I'm sure he's a very smart guy. And present himself as an expert to Talmud. And then you have Candace Owens that spread hairlines. These people are talking about the Talmud. It's the same chutzpah that I will go and talk about relativity of Einstein when I'm not very strong in physics. And trust me, I could speak more in authority about the relative theory of Einstein than they can speak about the Talmud. So I really not only frustrated, I'm furious about a chutzpah of people who know nothing to present themselves as the authority in Talmud.
Rabbi, I just want to add a couple points to your ideas about what the Talmud is. It's considered to be the central text in Judaism. The Talmud is one of the most important texts in Rabbinic Judaism, serving as a central source of Jewish law, ethics, customs, and history. There are two versions. One comes from Jerusalem, and the other comes from Babylon, or the Babylonian Talmud. The structure. The Talmud is composed of two main parts: the Mishnah, which is a compilation of oral laws, and the Gemara, which is a commentary on the Mishnah. The Gemara expands on the Mishnah, discussing its implications, interpreting it, debating it, and its details. The Talmud contains extensive legal discussions addressing issues of Jewish halakha, law, including rituals, practices, civil laws, and ethical guidelines. It explores complex legal scenarios and provides rulings. Now, in the 17th century, the 1600s, a fellow by the name of Jan Andreas Eisenmenger wrote a book called The Jury Unmasked. And he used these quotes to try to prove how anti-Gentile the Jewish people really are. Now, in 1876, the German Imperial Academy of Sciences wrote a report on this gentleman's claims, and their conclusion was it's a collection of scandals. Some are distorted, and others are just based on very one-sided information. What I would like us to do, Rabbi, if you're amenable, is to take a couple of these quotes that this individual, this poker player, has used to once again show that the Jews are anti-Gentile, and to break them down and to discuss them. In the very first one, which he quotes from being in the Talmud Sanhedrin, it says, even the best of goyim, non-Jews, should all be killed. Do you want to speak to that?
Listen, this is an easy one. Most of the authoritative version of this quote are saying, in time of war, only three words, Bezman milchama, at the time of war, you have to treat every enemy, not asking too many questions. If he fights against you, you try to kill him. And this is certainly, chas v'shalom, and I will speak about it, not in regular times. And here is a simple proof, Avrum. I think it's very, very important to understand. And that's why I'm so upset with this kind of things. Let's look on history. How many times in history Jews killed non-Jews purposely, not in a time of self-defense or a war? Even the October 7th, and everyone is screaming about the innocent people in Gaza. And I'm sorry for every innocent person in Gaza, but let me tell you one thing. If the Jews would not be attacked on October 7th, every person in Gaza that died, innocent or not, would be alive today. The Jewish people over not 1 year and not over 10 years, decades or millennia, we never went out to kill non-Jews. And according to the Talmud, why not? Actually, we should take every opportunity to kill non-Jews. On the contrary, what happened, and we know it very well from history, the people who have so many complaints about the Talmud, they kill Jews by the millions. I'm not talking about one Jew on the street, one pogrom. We are talking about millions and millions of Jews who died by the people of the religion of peace, the religion of truth, and so on and so on. So first of all, we have to see what happened actually in real life. Let's leave the text for a second. This will tell you a lot about the text. So all the text here who come to show our disdain towards the non-Jews, first of all, I can give for each one of them 10 that tells you that you have to treat a non-Jew with utter respect. And you cannot do anything bad to him. On the contrary, sometimes the law, the Jewish law, say that it's worse to treat a non-Jew in a way that he will criticize the Jewish people. It's even worse than mistreating a Jewish person. So if we look in history, on real life, this is all lie, because Jews never went out to kill with no reason non-Jews. Number one, according to all these quotes, that a non-Jew is not considered a human being, he is a dog. You would expect that people like us, if this would be true, will take any opportunity to kill a non-Jew that they don't like. It never happened. It never happened because, as I said before, our tradition is mostly an oral tradition until this very day. If I have a question, I'm going to my rabbi. If my rabbi doesn't know the answer, he goes to his rabbi. So all the texts that we have are just bullet point, but the one who made the decisions are the living rabbi of the generation. And I can tell you, over 200 generations and more, no one rabbi said, go, and if you have the opportunity to kill a non-Jew, go and kill non-Jew.
Yeah, I want to add to this. I was watching a fascinating interview on JTV, which dealt with this exact situation. And in it, the rabbi was also breaking down these. They're not really quotes. They're not direct quotes from the Talmud. They're a synopsis of what these individuals think the Talmud is saying. But this rabbi said that this was in reference to non-Jews coming to kill Jews. And as an example, the Egyptians who were chasing after Jews on horses and chariots after the Jews had left Egypt. In Exodus 9:20, Moses instructs the Egyptian people, those who feared God shall keep their animals inside. And there were God-fearing Egyptians, but in fact, when the Jews left, they took their horses out and they chased after the Jewish people. And at that time, Moses said, listen, it's incumbent upon us, no matter how righteous these people seem like they were, they're chasing us now to kill us. So we need to kill them first. And that's wise. When somebody is coming to kill you, it's imperative that you protect yourself and you protect your family. And if need be, you kill them first, despite the fact that they seemed like righteous Gentiles.
A righteous Gentile, then we have many of them. And I'm sure that you and myself, we have many, many people. I'm working in a school with many Gentiles. You can ask them if they ever experienced something that I treat a non-Jew differently than my fellow Jew. This is so not true. This is such a misunderstanding of what Jewish life is all about. Because really, we see ourselves as teachers, as people who come to tell them the world what values God wants the human being to take, to behave like. Can teacher like mistreat a student? In no way. And again, I don't try to patronize myself and to say, oh, everyone else is my student. That's not what I mean. What I mean is that on the contrary, the Torah actually wants us to treat the non-Jew in respect. A story in the Talmud that, of course, they are not going to tell you is that Rabbi Yochanan, the highest scholar in Eretz Israel on the 3rd century, he used to stand up when an older Gentile passed next to him to give him respect. And he actually based it on a verse in the Torah, Mipnei Seivat Takum, you should respect the elderly people. This, of course, will not be part of the Talmud, but I can tell you that there are many Gentiles who don't respect their scholars and their elderly, where the Jewish people do respect them. But this, of course, is not going to be in the quotes of this Bilzerian or whatever his name.
Claims of anti-Semitism often arise from misinterpretations or out-of-context quotations from the Talmud. Many accusations rely on distorted translations or selective readings that do not reflect the full context or the nuanced discussions within the text. Here in our list of quotes, or really synopsis, as according to these individuals, we read in the second column, the very first one, if a non-Jew hits a Jew, then he must be killed. And then the one right below that, when a Jew murders a Gentile, there will be no death penalty. Do you want to explain that correctly, Rabbi?
Okay, so it's again very, very simple. First of all, I don't have the Talmud in front of me to check if this quote is exactly this quote, but I will explain something. And again, I want to start actually from history itself. I don't know one case where a Jew or non-Jew hit a Jew and the Jews went and killed this non-Jew. In theory, what it says here is the following. In society that have its own rules, and the Jewish community have its own rules in a certain parts of history, I'm not sure that all the time the Jews ruled themselves according to their law is more than 300-400 years of 4,000 years of Jewish history. You have to remember that the non-Jews that you are talking here about are people, not like the Canadians around us, educated, well-behaved people, people with lots of respect. We are talking here about pagans. We are talking here about people that their attitude or their respect to human life is nothing. I just want to remind you what we spoke 2 weeks ago about the Romans throwing to a show people that are going to be eaten by lion or by other predators. This was the value of life in these days. So come our sages and say, well, when you live around people who have zero value to human life, don't wait until they kill your son or your brother or your father. If they come to hit you, hit back. That's the meaning of it. And you know what? It's a very smart way to present. Don't wait until a calamity has happened. Be prepared before it happened. Now, obviously, as I said, over the history, Jews got lots of bruises. They were hit by non-Jews. I don't know, and no one will bring me proof from anywhere that Jews, as a result, went and killed non-Jews just because it's written in the Talmud. Because every Jew will go to his rabbi, and the rabbi will say, you are crazy even if you think about it, because Jews even did not think about it.
The primary purpose of the Talmud is to discuss and develop Jewish law and ethics. It is a text dedicated to interpreting and applying religious principles rather than promoting hostility or discrimination. Its teachings are aimed at guiding Jewish practice and maintaining community cohesion. Now, when you look at the first column, the fourth piece down, which comes from, according to this gentleman, Shas 2:2, and there's no such Talmud, by the way, called Shas.
Yeah, you know, I went before the show, before we started this podcast, I went over the sources. I think there is a mistake here. First of all, I never heard about this source. Number two, I don't know the quote, and I think I have enough knowledge to see what is true and what is not. And by the way, going over the quote, I knew exactly what they mean. And some of them are so like mistranslated or adding a nonsense into it. We will talk maybe about the one that say that the Jewish people are called humans and the non-Jewish are not called humans. Atem kruim adam velo umot haolam kruim adam, which is, by the way, it's a verse in Yechezkel that even the non-Jews believe in its holiness, right? So it's not a Jewish a source, exclusively Jewish source. We are talking here about something that is respected by many non-Jews as well, who take the Old Testimony very, very seriously. So the source that you mentioned, I don't think exists in any way, but let's talk about, I'll tell a story and I will explain this verse that says, or this quote that says that Jewish people are called humans, but not Gentiles. And there is a quote like this, but I want to explain it because this quote was brought in a very, very famous blood libel against a person that his name was Mendel Baylis. Everyone who is going to Google will find a lot about this blood libel that was against him in Russia. And the prosecutor actually brought this very quote from the Talmud to prove that the Jews don't care about non-Jews, because the Talmud says, "Atem kruim adam," you are named humans, but umot haolam, the Gentiles, are not considered humans. So, of course, with a quote like this, why should we think that Baylis will have any problem, moral problem, to kill a non-Jew? And the defenders, who were not Torah scholars, did not know exactly how to respond to this quote. And they went to Rabbi Maza. Rabbi Maza was at the time the chief rabbi of Moscow. And he said, "Please call me to the court. I want to explain it to them." And they invited him to the court, and he stood in front of the judges and asked the following question. He said, I just read this morning that in Brazil, a person is going to be executed for murdering another one. So he asks the honorable judges, did you pray for this poor person that many people believe that he did not kill the other one? Do you care about it? And they say, no, of course not. He's in Brazil. We are in Russia. Why should we care about it? And he said, I want you to know something. At this moment where Mendel Baylis, who is standing in front of you, is accused in murder, and there is a great danger that as a result of your conviction, he is going to be executed. There are thousands and thousands of people all over the Jewish world, in England, in Poland, in Yemen, in Israel, in the United States, who are standing now and praying for Mendel Baylis. You know why? Because atem kruim adam, because you, the Jewish people, is one body. When one finger is hurt, the entire body hurts. And you are not kruim adam, because when a person in Brazil or in Peru or in England is suffering, it's none of your business. So it's not the derogative, but it means that the connection, the spiritual connection between one Jew to another is like the connection between one cell in the body to another. That's the meaning of atem kruim adam ve'ein umot haolam kruim adam. It's not anti-Jewish. It just tells you something about the quality of the Jewish people. And you know what? I don't know if this was the only thing that saved the life of Mendel Baylis. He was actually acquitted, and the rest of his life he made in the United States. He came to the United States. But this is a beautiful pshat, and it's not homiletic one. It's expressing a profound idea based on a pasuk, but it's not in any way or shape a call for a Jew to mistreat non-Jew.
Scholarly and rabbinic authorities widely reject interpretations of the Talmud that promote anti-Semitism. The Talmud itself has been the subject of extensive study and commentary by Jewish scholars for centuries, who continuously work to clarify its teachings and counteract misconceptions. Now, Rabbi, one of the pieces here that this fellow brought forward was, if you eat with a non-Jew, it's like you're eating with a dog. What is he telling us here?
First of all, I must say that many people today they eat with their dogs, and actually they buy them very expensive food.
That's true.
Um,
And cats.
so I don't know what does that mean. Again, I want to talk about the non-Jew, the typical non-Jew in the time of the Talmud. We are talking here about primitive societies that were decaying morally in every possible way. The attitude of for life of another person, the way they conducted themselves in a vulgar way. So we are not talking about the people today, and this is one of the greatest mistakes that many people are doing about history. They try to judge history upon our values today. I'll give you one little example. Do you know that in India, until less than 100 years ago, a young widow who lost her husband, she would be barren alive because she cannot live anymore with her husband. We are talking about a world that not too long ago, and take like the slaves in America, we are talking about a world that the morals are changing very fast, sometimes maybe too fast. And we try to judge cultures of 1700 years ago. And we think that when you talk about the goy, you talk about Kamala Harris or Joe Biden. No, we are not talking about wonderful, great people. And I don't want to do any propaganda here, of course. But we are not talking about educated people. Although I have to say something about the educated people as we see them today. This is for another podcast. But really, like the people of 17 and 1800 years ago that the Talmud referred to, were people that wouldn't care to kill you alive. And as I said, go to the Roman Colosseum, go to the Roman entertainment, and you will see what I'm talking about. And we are talking about the greatest civilization on earth. And they talk about us? Come on, that's a joke.
Yeah, just to follow up on what you're saying, the Talmud was written in a very specific historical and cultural context, reflecting the intellectual and legal concerns of its times. Evaluating it with modern standards without considering its historical background can lead to misunderstanding. The Talmud's content should be interpreted within the framework of its time rather than through contemporary lens. One of the pieces that this fellow brings forward is that if a Jew finds an object lost by a Gentile, it does not have to be returned. Explain that, Rabbi.
Okay, so as we say a few times, the laws in the Jewish community come to create a very strong community because the mission we have. So we have to adhere to the highest standards possible. I'll give you one example. If I find something that worth a dime on the street and I know who it belongs to, I have to go and to spend time and sometimes money in order to give it to another person. Even today in Canada, if you find something which is less than $200, I believe there is a set amount of money, maybe $400. You don't have to go and spend your time in order to return it to the owner. Correct me if I'm mistaken. I don't think it exists in any law that you have to return something of a dime to the person that you know it belongs to. Obviously, the same was the standard between the non-Jews and Jews. They found something and they took it to themselves. They saw it as a gift from God. So indeed, it's very, very true. The Torah said, you don't have to be more righteous than the Pope himself. If the Pope is not going to return this, what he found on the street to you, you don't have to give it to another one. But again, I want to make the point very, very clear. At the same time that we say that this is something that it's an idea developed by the Jewish Torah, and it applies to the people that the Jewish Torah was talking to. In every generation, the rabbis recommended and instructed people to return lost objects. There is such a beautiful story in the Talmud that, these people try to dismiss about Rabbi Shimon ben Shattach, a great Torah scholar at the time of the beginning of the Second Temple. And he bought a donkey from a non-Jew. When his students brought the donkey that he bought to his house, he realized that there is a beautiful piece of gem tied to the donkey. Apparently, he wanted to stage it for the sale or something like this, and he was not aware to the huge value of this gem. And although the Torah say that you don't have to return it, right? That's the quote. He instructed the students to go back and to give it back to the goy, against what the Talmud seemingly instruct us. So here is again a perfect example that you have text, but you have a living Torah. And in the tension between the two, it's always the living Torah that is important. And therefore, I can tell you that rabbis all over will instruct you that if you found something valuable, you give it back to another person, especially when society is very different. I have to tell you a story that taught me this lesson in a big way. Many years ago, I took my family to a trip. I told you about my trip to the Zion Canyon in, I think, Utah or Arizona. I can't remember where it is. Anyway, somehow, with 7 kids around me, I forgot my camera on the picnic table. 1 hour into the canyon, I realized that I lost my camera. It was very expensive then. I like to take pictures of my family, and I knew that I'm not going to see it again. To my amazement, I see a person running after me and say, "Sir, is this yours?" The person was clearly non-Jew, and he made the effort to give it to me. So the people that the Talmud is talking about are not the people that got excellent education and live in a society, in a free society, and they appreciate the life and the possessions of others. And therefore, to smear the Jews of today, because standards that were highest standards in the 3rd century, it's a crime. It's a crime, because certainly the laws that apply to a certain society then don't apply to the society today. How do you know that? You go to the rabbis, and the rabbis have a living tradition of what is allowed and what is not allowed, many, many times against the written word of the Talmud.
Rabbi, in the first column, the second one down, it states all children of goyim are animals. Would you like to explain that?
Well, it does not appear there. It's impossible. It's just impossible. This is from where? Just tell me where is it from, because I cannot see it on my screen.
Yevamos 98a.
You know what? If we have a second time, a second, just to for me to bring it up on my computer. Can you just read it again? What does it say? It
says all children of goyim are animals.
This cannot be. You know what? I'm going to eat my yarmulke if this is true. This is what, Yevamot?
Yevamos 98a.
98a. Okay, let's see. What do we have here? It's so beautiful that today I don't even to go to the books behind me. 98, you said? 98 is Tzadik Tet. Tzadik Chet Aleph, page 1. Oh, that's unbelievable. It doesn't say anything like this. You know what? Do we have time that I will explain it?
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
Okay. I want you to go to the people who quote this quote and to ask them what is the context of all of this. So I will tell you, because you will understand it. In the Jewish law, there is a very interesting law that when a person died with no children, the brother of the deceased has to marry the wife. And why? Because the responsibility that we were speaking about, the Jewish people are one family, but especially in one family, there is the responsibility of one brother to another. And the Torah said the brother who is alive taking the wife of the deceased brother. And again, you have to remember the society that women did not work, and this widow, the world collapsed on her head. And the Torah say two things. Number one, you take care for your sister-in-law and you marry her, number one. Number two, the child that is going to be born is going to be named after your brother. That's what family means, that one stand for the other when the other one died or broke or going through terrible time. Okay, now, this is only between brothers. What happens if you are not sure that he's your brother? Then you cannot marry his wife, because actually, according to the Torah, in the Parsha of Arayot, of the people that you are not allowed to marry, and that's a very great sin, one of them is the sister-in-law, in case that your brother had children, so in this situation, this is a grave sin to marry her. So here's the Gemara, and again, I just tackle it in a second, and what I remember from years ago from Masechet Yevamot, we are talking here about twins. Now, twins, there is no question. Between two brothers, sometimes you don't know who is the father. You know that. I mean, you understand what I mean. Like two brothers, you know that the mother is the same, but you are not sure about if the father is the same. And then there is no a commandment to marry the widow, because actually she's not, maybe this was not your real brother, right? Or half a brother and so on. However, in a case of twins that converted, you know that the father was the same, because when there are twins, the father of this one is the father of this one. That's scientifically proved. And nevertheless, the Torah says that the converted brother, the converted twin brother, cannot marry off the sister-in-law. Although it's clear that he is his brother, because we are sure that the father of him is the father of the deceased, he cannot marry her. And the reason is that the Gemara bring it, talking about the Egyptians, that the Egyptians had a very low moral standard, and they were sleeping with whoever it is. And the Navi, again, the prophet Yechezkel, described them as donkeys and horses, not the children. The society that treated women that belonged to other people, that saw the entire sexual life in a very low way. They were not very different from the way horses mate or donkeys mate. And by bringing this pasuk, the Torah says that a person who was born from such a society, the brother are not considered real brothers, because brother is not only a biological fact. A brother is someone that is belong to the same culture. That's the way I understand it. And these people who are just driven by their lust and desires does not have the common ground of a Torah that based even sexual life on terms of kedusha, of holiness. So you take something that is said about a culture, and you know what? I'm sure that even today you can say about certain culture that they are heavily involved in desires and lust, and don't have the value of a family, of commitment to a family, but they do, their sexual life is evolved around lust and animalistic desires. You can say it even today. But think about the idea. Number one, even people who came from such a culture can become Jews. We are talking here about converts, people who converted. We don't hold their past against them. Number two, we help them psychologically to depart from their past. Can you imagine like a person like this and everyone, oh, I know who's your father. He's, I don't want to say like a professional poker player or something like this. We don't want people to hold their family history on their back all their life. And the Torah free them, like unfether them from their past. And they say, it consider like you born anew. You don't have to take your psychological past on your shoulders. So, of course, there is a way to take something, to twist it, and to say, oh, non-Jews are like animals. But it's exactly the opposite. It's appreciation of the greatness of a person who, no matter where he came from, can be Jewish, can be part of the Jewish community, no questions asked. Not only that, his past will never be shackles on his spiritual journey. So this is the way I prefer to see it. And trust me, my interpretation is much stronger than the interpretation of these bloggers.
This poker player.
Yeah.
Rabbi, in conclusion, I'm going to ask you the obvious, and you've stated it already, but I'm so taken by your disposition, by your response to this issue. Why are you so hot? And why are you so bothered by this whole thing?
For two reasons. I love Talmud, and not because my name is Gemara, which is like Talmud in Aramaic. Listen, I spend nights and days to learn Talmud. I appreciate every word of the Talmud. And when I don't understand, I say I don't understand it, but I will not say this Talmud is like just a bunch of nonsense and anti-Jewish thing. And I'm not saying this is a huge body of work. You can see all the books behind me, if our people can see it, and here, like there are 27 pages of like writings that on this one there are hundreds of thousands other pages just to explain them. So when people are taking quotes, 20 quotes or whatever it is from the Talmud, it's like someone that I try to host, and I have a beautiful palace, but he's going to send pictures from my washroom. You understand, this is so unfair, because the Jewish people are indeed great in many, many ways because of the Talmud. And because the special relationship and the instruction of the Talmud, which is, as you say, the ground to our entire halachic life, and like lawyers and doctors that helped so much to the world, they were built, if not themselves, but their parents, their grandparents, they learned Talmud. They wanted to be smarter, to understand better the word of God. And to take this and to turn it against the Jews, that make me very, very upset. Number two, is something that I would highly suggest all our readers to explore, and it's called the effect of Dunning-Kruger. I'm sure that every Wikipedia, every encyclopedia will talk about it. Listen to this. I think in the year 2000 or 1999, two professors from Cornell made a fascinating experience with some students in Cornell, a great university, and they took three areas of humor and logical problems, and they gave it to the students. And after the students finished their assignment, they asked them to rank themselves if they think that they did in the in the 25 percentile, 50 percentile, 99 percentile. They asked them to rate themselves, and they found something quite amazing. All the students, not all, but the students who scored 25 and low on this assignment, they ranked themselves on the 62 percentile. So they over-exaggerated their ability and their knowledge, and the conclusion of the research was, you know why they exaggerated it? Because they are so unknowledgeable and have such a lack of understanding that leads them to estimate their own achievements. And there is a whole Torah came from this famous research that actually the less you know, most likely the more you think you are expert or smarter in certain area, which is fascinating. And that's exactly what I see here. People who never spend one night to understand one Tosfot, one page of one blot of Gemara, they feel themselves with authority to lie and to twist the mind of millions of people. That I cannot accept. But I will tell you one thing, and I will end with this one because Shabbos is very, very close. The people who buy this nonsense, I want to warn them because I have like a nice bridge in Brooklyn to sell them. These are the people who are not doing the research, and this is a great danger of the internet. People who never learn how to invest becomes like professional investors, and they do wonderful videos, and they will convince you to put their money that most likely you are going to lose. And you know what? As long as you have people who buy this nonsense about the Talmud, you will have many more millions people who will be convinced by false investors. You can have on the internet today people who present themselves as expert in wellness and bodybuilders because they were successful. Do they know the anatomy? Do they know what are the risks in certain activity? They don't. But the internet allow you to spread your ideas and like an expert. And you know what? Maybe these people think themselves as expert because exactly that was the effect of Dunning-Kruger that I'm talking about. Because they know very little, they think themselves as expert. And the story about the Gemara, to me, is quite the same. So here is my warning to all the people who take seriously these quotes of the Gemara. Most likely, you are going to lose your money. Most likely, you are going to hurt your health. Don't listen to something, even if it's like echoed 6 million times, 60 million times. Learn the Talmud, and you will avoid many, many troubles in other areas as well.
Rabbi, you did a beautiful job of explaining this, and I want to thank you so much, both for your knowledge and also for your passion, which you brought forward in a way that, honestly, I haven't seen before. So clearly, this is an issue to you that's very important. And I know, based on my knowledge of your resume and your history, that you stand on the front lines of the Jewish people, and you have done so as an IDF soldier when you were younger, and today as a rabbi and as a teacher and doing our podcast together. I think your words resonate far and wide, and I think you've done a brilliant job of debunking this nonsense. And the point that really stood out to me right at the end was that these are false individuals. They're cheap. They're people who do not put in time or any effort into probably life. He's a poker player, and into clearly their anti-Semitism. Be a little bit better at it because you're not very good at it. So yesha koach to you, and continue doing what you're doing with such great verve and with such great passion. I want to conclude the show by reminding everybody that it is sponsored by the Professional Center, Toronto's leading co-working space where excellence is the norm. From private sunlit offices to fully equipped meeting rooms, their spaces are designed to allow you to focus and get to work. At TPC, they combine high-end amenities with unparalleled services, ensuring your office experience meets the highest standards. Discover why TPC offers more sophistication, more privacy, and more opportunities to grow. For more information, visit theprofessionalcenter.com. Mention my name, AVRUM, for 10% off private offices and meeting rooms. Rabbi, have a beautiful Shabbat to you and your family.
Thank you very much. And I have to actually thank you because you know what? I don't have the opportunity. And it's really, as you could see, I'm passionate about it. I really get very, very upset when you send me the article that I did not read before. I was like, wow, I couldn't sleep over it, to be honest with you. And I'm very happy that you gave me the podium to say what I have in my heart.
Listen, I feel deeply honored to do this together with you, and the comments that we're getting is that this show is working. So I think your words are going to go far and wide. And once again, as they say in the vernacular, Yoshakoach, Shabbat Shalom, Am Yisrael Achai. There should be peace in Israel. And all good people out there should be blessed. And we should recognize their beauty, and they should recognize ours.
Absolutely.
Shabbat